All right, welcome back to another video, and today we'll be working the January 2022 paper 2 question 8. So let's go. So question 8 is under the section functions algebra, functions, relations, and graphs, including with algebra. So it says the function f of x is equal to 3 plus 5x minus x squared, and part A1 says complete the table of values for f of x being equal to the 3 plus 5x minus x squared. So what we know is that this is quadratics, and based off the x squared coefficient, which is a -1, we already know what our curve will look like. It will have a maximum point, so it will look something to this effect. So this is how the parabola will shape. So we'll somehow result in having a maximum point. But what we can do to solve these missing values is to put the corresponding x values, and it will give us the y values. So f of 0, it will give us our f of x value, or f of 1, f of 4, and f of 6. So that is what we will do here for part 1 in order to solve the unknown. So we're starting with f of 0, which means that everywhere in the equation that we see x, we will put 0. So it is 3 plus 5x. So we're going to put 0 minus x squared. So that becomes 0 squared. So what we'll have here is f of 0 being equal to 3, because 5 times 0 is 0, and minus 0 squared would be 0. So f of 0 would be equal to 3. So now we will go on to the next one. So let me just jot in the 3 right here. So this would be 3. Next we go to the other one. So next we'll have f of 1, and that would be equal to 3 plus 5 times 1 minus 1 squared, and what that will give us is f of 1 is equal to 3 plus 5 times 1 is 1 minus 1 squared is 1. So therefore f of 1 is equal to 3 plus 5 is 8, 8 minus 1 is 7. So therefore when x is 1, our f of x value will be 7. Now we're going on to f of 4. So same procedure, everywhere we see x, we replace it with 4. So that will be 3 plus 5 times 4 minus 4 squared. So therefore f of 4 is equal to 3 plus 5 times 4 is 20 minus 4 squared is 60. So therefore f of 4 is equal to, so 3 plus 20, that will give us 23 minus 16, and that will give us 7. So now we can see our graph reach a maximum of 9 here and now start descending. So when our x value is 4, our f of x value is 7. Now going on to f of 6. Same procedure, f of 6 is equal to 3 plus 5 times 6 minus 6 squared. So what that will give us is f of 6 is equal to 3 plus 5 times 6 is 30 minus 6 squared, that is 30. 6. And what that will give us is f of 6 is equal to 3 plus 30, that is 33, minus 36, that is a negative 3. So, or when x is 6, or f of x value is a negative 3. And these are the values that we are going to use in the question to come. So it says on the grid below, complete the graph f of x, where our x values range between -1 to 6, and they have plotted some of the points for us. So if we look, our first one was -1, 3. And I think that's what they plot, yes, -1 from our x, -3 from our y value. So basically, the key on our graph is for every 2 units is equal to 1, both on the x and y axis. So they plotted that one. The next one was 0, 3. So we're coming, so let me change the color to, let's say, red, which might be brighter. So 0 and then 3 from our y-axis. So that is where our point will be. The next one was 1, 7. So it is 1, 7. So basically, it is the points that we calculated that are missing, because we can see 2, 9 and 3, 9. So this would be 2, 9 and then 3, 9. And then the other would be 4, 7. So 4 from our x-axis, 7 from our y-axis. And then the next point was 5, 3, which is what they plotted here, 5, 3. And then the other one is 6, -3. And that is our last point. So 6 from the x-axis and -3 from our y-axis. And as we said, remember right here, I already predicted that the graph will have a maximum point, and it is seen here. So what we're going to do now is to draw our best curve. And if you watch my previous videos, you'll see that I am not the best artist. I didn't do well in art class. So therefore, I'm going to try my absolute best now using this computer to draw my best graph. So we are going through all our points here. So I'm trying my absolute best to join these points. All right, I'm going good. I think this could give me a 98% if I was in art class. And we know when we're here, we don't just go ahead and draw a straight line across. So it needs to have a little height on it. So you're slightly going over. And then, all right, mine went too far over. So we're slightly going up. And then we need to start descending. Aha. So we're now, I'm doing good. I think this should give me 95. I'm going to take it from a 98. If I was being graded in art class, I think a 98, 95 will do me well. Let's see if I can end at that 9. All right, a little shaky there. So give me a 92. I'm good with a 92%. Very good comparing to my grade 8 artwork, but I am very proud of it. So this is what your graph will look like after finish plotting the points that are missing and then drawing your best fit curve. I am absolutely proud of this. Now B1 says write down the equation of the axis of symmetry of the graph. So what we know about axis of symmetry, it is that mirror line. That line would split your graph in two. So mean that half of your graph is on one side and half is on the next side. So you don't even have to go, you could use a formula, but you don't have to say, oh my God, I remember my teacher told me this formula, and you were so excited because you studied your formula, and I would be too. But in this case, you don't need to go for the formula because the graph is there. So all you need to do is to look at what line there splits your graph in 2, and it would be somewhere between these two top points. So that is there, so that is 2 units apart. So therefore my mirror line or my axis of symmetry would be at this point. So therefore, when we do that, this is between 2 and 3. So therefore, my axis of symmetry, and remember it says equation. So whenever you see equation of the axis of symmetry, we know that we are actually writing an equation, meaning there's an equal sign there. So therefore, axis of symmetry will be x is equal to 2.5. So that is basically the x value there. Part 2 now says state the maximum value of the function. So maximum value would be somewhere here. So this is 9. As you can see, the smaller units in between is 2, because this would be, so let's say right here, so it is 8, 8.2, 4, 8.6, 8.8, then this would be 9. Then our line here, it is somewhere between, so my curve, it could be 9.3, or this is what, 9.2, 9.4, so it could be 9.3 thereabout. So I'm going to use, because I am seeing where it is halfway between the 9.2 line, 9.4. So I'm going to say, let us use 9.3. But the thing is, based on your graph, you get the answer for 9.3. But if you should put this, so the maximum, which is our y value, is equal to, I'm using 9.3. But if you should put this into your formula, you will get the exact value. But usually what they do when they're giving marks is there is some amount of approximation as to where our line, the marks. So for example, persons who probably get 9.3 based on their graph, you will still get the marks. But you could put, because we know the x value, which is 2.5, so we could find f of 2.5. If we found f of 2.5, that would be equal to 3 plus 5 being multiplied by 2.5 minus 2.5 squared. And let's see what that will give us. So f of 2.5 is equal to 3 plus, so you'll have 5 times 2.5, that will give us 12.5 minus 2.5 squared, that will give us 6.25. So when we now put that in our calculator, f of 2.5, that will give me 3 plus 12.5, that is 15.5 minus 6.25, that will give me 9.25, which basically we wrote it to 1 decimal place, and we got 9.3. So see, I do deserve my 92% marks for drawing that graph, because we're there based on estimation. So, but we're writing y, which is the maximum value for the function, being 9.3. Part C now says write down the coordinates of the point where the line y is equal to 3 minus a half x. And as I saw this equation, the first thing that came to mind was equation of a straight line, which states y is equal to mx plus c, where c is our y-intercept, x is the x value, m is our gradient. So therefore, based on this, our gradient is a negative a half, where our x value under y-intercept would be c. So that's the first thing that I identified from this. So it is a straight line. So part 1 says we're writing on the coordinates for where it crosses the x-axis. So if you remember, at the point where it crosses the x-axis, our y value would be 0. So I could go ahead and solve for that. So at the point, this point, y would be equal to 0, and we'll have 3 minus a half x. And if we should solve for that, if I should carry over my minus half x, I will have a half x is, all right, so no, so this should be a half, again, last time, a half, good. a half x is equal to 3, and I can now solve for x, and x would be equal to 3 multiplied by 2 over 1, which would make x be equal to 6. So it crosses the x value, the x point at 6, and it says we should write the coordinates. So therefore, our coordinates would be, so when we write our x value first, it would be 6, followed by our y value would be 0. Because we assume that it crosses, well, not assume, it is a fact that it would cut the x-axis at the point where y is equal to 0. So that is our first mark. Part 2 says where it crosses the x, where it crosses the y-axis, where it crosses the y-axis, x would be equal to 0. But also remember from our equation of a straight line, c is equal to the y-intercept, and that is what would be here. And we already identified that our y-intercept would be 3. So we know what it would be, but also let us prove it by just 30 seconds putting it into our formula. So we know that, so we're saying y is equal to 3 minus a half x, and we're saying it crosses the x-axis at the point 0. So it will be 0. So therefore, y is equal to, this is a half times 0, which is 0. So therefore, y is equal to 3. So that proved our point that our y-intercept and our formula is true, that it is the y-intercept. So what we'll have here is our x value would be 0 and our y value is 3. And those would be our coordinates. Part D now says on the grid, which would be the one that we plotted my 92% graph, and it says draw the line y is equal to 3 minus a half x. So on the graph, we're going to plot the points that we just identified, because it's a draw the line. So we're using this 6, 0, because remember when you're drawing a straight line, all you really need are 2 points, 2 coordinates, different coordinates that are very far apart in order to plot your straight line. So these are the points that we'll be using. So we're using first 6 and 0. So coming back to our graph, we're using 6. So 6 from our x-axis, 0 from our y. So that means it would be right here. And the other one is 0, 3. So it would be 0 from our x-axis, 3 from our y-axis. So it would be at this point here, which is already marked. So we're just connecting those 2 points using a straight line. So let me just go and get my straight line. And what color should we use? Don't want to use blue since blue. Okay, so let's use yellow and make it as thick so that we can see. So this is our line. So we're connecting. You'll have your ruler. So you'll just use your ruler to connect. So your straight line, it should be passing through these 2 points that you plotted. So your line will look something like this. I'm really proud of this graph. It is going. So that will be your straight line. So that is what we did for D. Part E now says, using your graph, determine the solution to the equations. So once they're asking you for the solutions, you're looking for the respective x and y values. It's like when solving a quadratic or rather simultaneous equation. So when you're solving a simultaneous equation, so we're solving the solutions to this equation. So we're looking at, that would be at where both graphs basically overlap. So it would be at this point right here. So let's circle it. So it would be at this point, and at this point. So So that would be where the solutions of the graph is. So at this point, we can say x is 0 and y is equal to 3. So that's a quick and easy one. So for the first one, it is x is equal to 0 and y is equal to 3. Or right here, so this is, let's say they overlap at this point, which is halfway between 5 and 6. So we can say x is equal to 5.5 and y is equal to, so let's say this is what, so 0.2, 0.3 thereabout. So let's say 0.3. And this is basically it. So these are what the question asks us for. It asks us for, so let's go back, determine the solution to the equation. So these are the solutions to the equation. X is equal to 0 and y is equal to 3, or x is equal to 5.5 and y is equal to 0.3, and that would be the solution for our graph. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you in another video. Probably won't be one with a 92% graph, but we'll see you again.